Hi, I'm Steve Schwarz, and I'm going to talk about something I'm semi-passionate about, which is actually giving a good experience to your users through your customer support approach and trying to make it so that your app makes it easier for you to do that. Your app, by app I also mean web apps and mobile applications. Oh, Joe, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to cover these topics like why have customer support, what the heck does it mean? What are some of the different options you could have if you wanted to support your product, if you care? Also, like what are some of the tools I've found that I've been using for my side projects and in my real life projects? Are there ways we could avoid support, right? Can we not have to do support for a customer request? How can we detect and reproduce bugs? And then let's actually act on and document some of the issues we've uncovered. So like I said, I'm going to focus on small, like side projects, stuff folks in this room might be working on for themselves. If you're trying to solve this at the corporate level, it's like a whole nother ball of mud. Okay, so what do I mean by support, right? By support, I mean, supposedly you've got a product that helps someone solve a problem, right? That's the whole point of having an app, right? And support is helping them actually use that product in a way to solve their problem. That's the whole purpose, right? So I think there's kind of two categories I lump things into. Supposedly your app does the thing they want it to do, and you're going to show them how to do it. Like they didn't know how they could do that, or they ran into a problem doing it. So there's the instructional aspect. The other one is, hey, I tried to use your tool, and it wouldn't let me. I couldn't do the thing you promised, or that I think it should do. And lastly, we want to do that since if it is a side project or there's just a few of you on your team, you can't spend hours and hours doing support. You want it to be as easy as possible. So let's kind of look at the whole spectrum of possible support approaches, right? You could be there, right? You could be on the phone with them. You could use chat, right? There's plenty of sites that use chat. Email messaging, contact forms, those are all pretty classic. Social media, more and more people are using social media to try to talk to their vendors, to us. Support forums and email groups, another way to do these things. And as you get into the more technical side of the world, you see stuff like issue trackers, knowledge bases, and the good old frequently asked questions list. Right? So I kind of draw the line that says, the ones above the top are synchronous, right? If we're all developers, right? So you're locked in with the person, you're going to work with them, that's cool. The other ones are kind of async, right? And I would argue the ones toward the bottom are probably less good for the user, right? In a perfect world, you want to pick up the phone and say, what the hell? Make it work. How do I do it, right? So consequently, it's more of your effort to move up this spectrum. But unfortunately, probably for most side projects, you're probably in the async world. That's just the reality, because you're working your day job. You don't have time to answer the phone for everyone else, right? But the whole thing I want to keep in mind is we should be customer focused the whole time, right? So ideally, you want to meet your users where they are and say, hey, let them choose the way to contact you. But the reality is we can't do everything. Right? So if you were to try to implement whatever dozen of those things and have them all working at once and you're just one or two people, you face all these issues across each of those options. So there's a big cost. It's real easy to sign up and say, yeah, I'm going to be on Twitter. I'm going to have this knowledge base. I'm going to write a FAQ. I'm going to have the phone is going to call me during work, and I'll just pretend it's my girlfriend. Whatever it is. But there's cost to doing all those things. So you kind of got to really choose. So I'm not going to spend much time on sync in real time, but I think I've actually been in projects where we had people on site for substantial amounts of time supporting the client. I was in factory automation for a while, so we're installing robots and training people and stuff like that. Phone and chat's more common in the classic enterprise world. But as a side project, don't necessarily rule it out. It could be, especially during beta. For my project, I gave out my friends were my beta testers. I said, text me, call me, as soon as you use it, and if you have a problem, tell me right away. I want to know. So don't rule it out. So email messaging, like Twitter DM or something like that, the contact forms are very common, right? But a thing I see that drives me crazy, especially as a user, is making it hard to find the effing email address on the website, right? I just want to send you an email. Why are you hiding it? And I've talked to business owners about this, and they're like, well, I don't want to get spam. Really? Really? You're going to turn your customers away because you don't want to delete a few spam emails?
I feel like you complained about that to me the first time we ever talked.
Oh, I said,
I think
it's an axe of mine. I hate it.
Well, but I had my phone number, but you were mad that I didn't have my
Oh,
email.
yeah, that's possible. The other pet peeve of Steve's is contact forms where they ask you like a dozen select drop downs. Like, is this about billing? Is this about, like, no, stop. You want to make this as easy as possible. There's also things out there called issue trackers, which we'll talk about. I'll give some demos of. And typically they'll actually assign you an email address. And people can just email that address. It'll create a ticket in the system automatically. And the user thinks they're just talking to you, but it's all recorded, both sides, and they can follow up and make it happen. So here's my demo app in super giant size. Oh, that is giant. So I did a bunch of these things, hopefully. So I said, hey, you can go to my help site, which is that issue tracker itself. I said, here's my damn email address, which is the support magical email address. And this tool I'm using made by Freshdesk also gives you a contact form. So, because this same code runs in the browser and it's a hybrid mobile app, so it runs on your phone as a mobile app or in the browser. And so I just have this form. If you don't want to click this and have it tap this and bring up your mail client, you can just use this form. And I only ask them two things. What the heck's it about? And then just type me some text. No crazy select lists, nothing about that. But the other kind of cool feature that these guys Freshdesk give you is you can actually access the knowledge base directly in the widget. So you can type in fancy stuff. It'll do the query, and it'll actually take them to the help desk article. Now, the question really becomes, would you have ever thought to click on that, right? From a UI, UX perspective, you might never have guessed that, but at least they could have sent me an email. So that's my thing, is I've given them a bunch of ways that are hopefully pretty low friction to interact, at least in this realm.
Steve, how do you integrate that form?
It's just an embed tag, just an embed script.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they've done a pretty nice job.
Actually, can I ask a question about that? That's kind of off topic, but since we're talking about that form, that field where it has the email address, is that the email address of the user?
In this case, this is them. This is
They're
me.
logged in.
I'm Steve. Steve at Agility Course Master is logged in currently.
Right.
And
Can
I
they
fill in their.
change that for some reason?
It's read only.
Okay, so why is it that?
Because they don't give me. Because I didn't fight through the CSS to display none on it.
Gotcha.
You know, I mean, I could have, but I haven't deployed yet. I'll put that on my issue tracker. Keep track of that. Keep track of
I'll send
that.
you a ticket.
Send me a ticket.
Jira ticket.
When you're in the beta group, right?
If you can find his email.
Right. Well played. So social media, right? All the kids these days are on the social media, on the interwebs, right? All our classics. My thoughts on this are, don't be on all of them unless you really think you can be on all of them and really be on it, because it's horrible to not actually be responsive, right? Yes.
Well, Google Plus is dying, so.
Right, but my point is, well, I'll get to that point in a minute. A key thing to keep in mind is, if they learned about you on social media on a certain platform, be prepared to get support requests on it too. You can't just fire and forget. I can't remember the product, like Buffer.io is one of those where you can say, hey, I want to just type in this. I think you send email to it or use their GUI, and it'll blast out to all your accounts. So it'll send it on Instagram, YouTube, wherever. But if you're always if you're always broadcast only, you'll be ignoring those people who are tweeting at you like, "What the hell? I can't open your app," and then they'll hate you and they'll go away and they'll tell their friends that they hate you, which is just as bad, right?
How many do you have? Like you say, don't be all over.
I use two. It's like know thy client. Like I have something like 12,000 Facebook followers for this, or in this area, in this domain for dog agility, and the vast majority of them are only on Facebook. 99% of them are on Facebook only. They don't use Twitter, they aren't on Instagram, they aren't on anything else. So my focus is almost entirely on email and Facebook, because that's where my customers are. But that's not necessarily your customers, right? You maybe have a very tech savvy group that are like, we're only on Twitter. Facebook, who uses Facebook? You know, that's totally not what I use. So you have to know your clients, that's what I propose. So the support forums, email groups, group chat, probably not as, I don't lean towards these for my group of people, because this is the dream, right? Oh, everyone's gonna get together in there and the hive mind will come and it's all just, they'll help each other and I won't have to do anything. It's gonna be awesome. How likely is that? Really think hard, right? If you have an app that's about collaboration, it's maybe likely, it's maybe possible. But I used Waze to get here to avoid the traffic tonight, and I have never considered, nor will I ever, go onto a Waze help. Whatever their help mechanism is, I just don't care about that product. There is no group there for me. Maybe my product has a group of people who want to talk about dog agility, but even that I think is unlikely. They have other mechanisms. And in addition to that, how likely are you going to be on there? That's what matters, right? If you're not going to be present in one of these categories, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. Because nothing's worse than an empty forum. You go on there and you see, it's like going to a GitHub repo. You look at the issues, there's like 300 open issues, all with 0 replies. You're like, this project is dead, I'm not going to use it. It's the same thing for your app too, right? If you aren't going to show up, people are going to walk away. They might not even buy your product if they came across the support and saw, oh, there's no support here. I'll find your competitor, right? The other thing, privacy, if you're like, say you have a legal app or a medical app, maybe you don't want to offer a public option like this at all, because you could have people accidentally posting like, oh, I have this illness or I have this legal situation, and they may not be thinking that they're putting themselves out in public, and it gets you in a situation you just don't want to be in, right? So of these, the tool, everyone's heard of Slack. Spectrum is one that I just learned about. You guys heard about Spectrum? I know these Spectrum.chat. I mean, this is basically Slack with just the slight spin of everything is threaded. So if you've used Slack, you'll notice a lot. I've noticed in a lot of the boards I'm on, they say don't use the threading feature. The moderator will be like, stop threading your replies because I won't reply to them. So you end up with all these interleaved conversations. These guys are all about threading, and they're like, no. And then we're going to put them all in one category. And for you as a support person, I think this is great, because you could have an answer in here, and you could link to it. When someone sends you an email and says, how do I do this? You can send them a link to a concise group of replies, which might include your reply, hopefully, and that'll give them the answer. So consider Spectrum. It doesn't fit my use case, but it might fit yours. Issue trackers, support knowledge bases, facts. There's tools out there like Spiceworks, which is free. So I'm going to kind of emphasize mostly free or low-cost things here. But I think it's more around IT ticketing, like, hey, my phone doesn't work. Hey, I'd like a new printer, you know, like inside your world there. So that's one to consider. Of course, the classics, right? The one I like is Freshdesk, which combines the issue tracker, the knowledge base, and social media. So you can actually connect up and say, here's my Twitter, here's my Facebook. It'll monitor them for you and alert you in the app and say, hey, you know, someone just sent you a support request in Twitter, or it has the email address, like I showed you, or the contact form, and all those create issues within the one Freshdesk environment. So yeah, email, they support phone, which I don't care about. Social media, they have a chat widget if you want to be around to do it. I mean, because I think that's the killer. I mean, in all these, you've got to be there to help out your customer. Otherwise, they just go away. I heard that dinging, so I'm just going to let this go and not talk about it. So, and here's, when you log in, basically, Oh, another nice feature of it is it has SAML, so that my login on my app is the same login automatically for the support site. So they don't need another login. It just all works. So you can come in as a nobody. Here I'm coming in as me. So I could see my specific tickets that are private to me, but otherwise you just get the knowledge base stuff. And you can embed videos, and pictures, whatever you want to include in there. So I highly recommend this Freshdesk. It's free for I think all volumes of use. Basically, you would upgrade to their other levels for more and better features. It's the usual kind of thing.
Do you work at Freshdesk?
No, I mean I'm happy to support anything that I think is a good product. I think this is a surprisingly good product. Facts, just don't do them. Just don't do a fact. Long story short, no one reads them. They end up just searching this huge page. It's a dumping ground. Follow Jerry McGovern. He is awesome if you want to know about user-facing stuff, UX, and just general dealing with your customer as a business. Okay. How can we avoid support, right? What are our options, right? Right? So, because if you're a one-person shop, right? Newsletters, onboarding campaigns, MailChimp just made MailChimp automation free within the last year, I think. So you can basically, when I add someone signs up, I add them to my MailChimp automatically. They have integration to do that. I use Auth0 for authentication. They have hooks, so I'll create their email, add them to the getting started list, and then you can define a series of events. So I said, as soon as they're added, send them this email called getting started, right? And they have a fancy little, I've never looked at this, zoomed in this far. But they have a fancy little GUI for, oh yeah, it's really terrible at this address. So they have a fancy little builder, and you can embed video and links, and it comes with all the unsubscribe goodness that you would expect from a email list manager. And so you can time these to give them a set of emails. So the first day they get getting started, a couple days later I have sent them another one about a detail feature they could do. Then a few more days later, another one, and then kind of follow up with, it would be you could do even more cool stuff if you upgraded the paying version, right? Because it's not only helping them, but it could tie into your marketing message as well. So MailChimp and MailChimp automation, kudos to these guys, I like them a lot too. You could have a tutorial in your initial app flow, right? So in my app, when you first log in, I walk them through a bunch of steps, telling them basically what that video would tell them, but in individual steps in the app. Similarly, you can, when they first time they hit a page, you could pop up, hey, here's stuff relevant to this view, this thing you're about to do. Here's the steps you might want to use as part of that. So you can include that built into your app. Because the whole goal is, how can we get them to not call me and still use the app, right? So that's show help as they use their app. It's got to be short and sweet. But how often do you act on any of these? You got to think how much are you like your users? When I see the tutorial pop up, I just hit escape and blow out of it right away, right? Okay, but maybe some of your users might use it. So you got to decide, when you get that onboarding emails, do you ever read them? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It might depend on the app, right? So they aren't a panacea, but I think if they save you a few unhappy people, they've got to be low friction, man. They've got to be so easy to use. Okay, the other way is, what if I find out about a bug before someone tells me? That's still almost as good as not having a bug, right? So there's a lot of players in this space. I've used Sentry before. I'm using Rollbar in my current app. What these are is basically JavaScript or whatever language you're in. You embed the library, and they catch exceptions. They're exception grabbers, and they'll record the call stack typically. Here, I'll show you an example. Here is a recent, here's like the dashboard. I've been generating some test errors. This is Rollbar. I'm still logged in here. Make this a little smaller.
Where are you hosting?
I'm hosting on DigitalOcean right now. So they'll give you a call stack trace. This is basically an Angular app. It's Ionic, but it's basically Angular. So it does all the uglifying and minifying and webpacking goodness. But you can upload a source map to a rollbar, and you can see it gives me real tracebacks and line numbers. So I can go into my browser and it'll show me where I threw this exception. But one of the cool things about it is it actually grabs all the XHR that went on preceding it. There's a whole bunch of database communication that goes on when they first start up the app. And somewhere down here, it gets the console logs too. So you have an idea of what's going on. You can also see what browser are they on. These are all on my Chrome browser. And they try to link items together. Like, hey, this looks like one I saw from before, and I have one recurring one that I can't fix that, it's like, 10th time this has happened in 5 days. You're like,
Yeah, I get the
So,
email.
is that just a script tag in your page?
yes, a script tag, and in this case, I hook it into the Angular exception handler. So it's like 5 lines of code.
Nice.
It's really nice. It's a nice product. Sentry is all, they are free up to levels which may or may not matter to you. 5,000 events per month. I'm not selling the next Candy Crush probably. For me, this is probably good for forever, right? Because if I have more than 5,000 errors in a month, I've got a serious problem, right? I mean, that's the deal. Okay, that covers that. Google Analytics, right? It's kind of, you may not like the Google one, but you find an analytics package you like, because you want to look out for page load times. Basically, hopefully you get enough business over time. You're like, oh, it was all working good until that 1,000th person signed up, right? And now my page line times are 10 times slower. So that's a bug you could find too before your customer finds it. So let's talk about reproducing. Be the user, right? A bunch of ways you can do this. You can provide an export function. I think GPDR, did I get those in the right?
GDPR.
Yeah.
GDPR, thank you, is basically you should people should be able to own their data. That could tie into your export mechanism. So if you want people, like on a mobile app, if it's all stored on the device and you need to debug it, you'd be like, oh, I'm not on the phone, but please email me your export and I will try to reproduce it. And then you've got their data. In my app, I implemented, this is the first time I've done this, where's my app? Is the notion, right. I'm not used to using my app when it's super giant like this. Is I add, if I log in as a super user, I add in extra functionality where I can get the user's GUID, and it'll actually switch me to them, download all their data from the database. Here's my crash button that I use to generate my test crash, just so you know where that came from. So basically, I'm now acting as this user. And another thing I do is, since I never get real URLs in a mobile app, because there's no URL, it's just wherever the hell you are, I also show just me, the super user, extra data. So I can figure out when they call and say, home AWC blah, 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 it doesn't show up when I click on it. I can say, oh, here's the database key. I'll go see what's wrong with that. So there's a couple tricks I've used to expose debugging stuff to me so I can help my customers out. You can also get their steps. There's a tool, Slack, Skype are nice, but you've got to have a user base that can use them. They have accounts on them. Mm-hmm. But that's screen sharing without the pain of setting up remote desktop, which I would always say no to if someone wants to offer me support with remote desktop.
You used OARC or looked at it?
I'm not familiar with it. LogRocket is new to me.
I would say that in the day and age of the Windows 10, you've got quick assist, which people don't know about. Have you tried it?
No, I haven't. I'm a Mac
You've
guy.
got. Okay, never mind. Go on.
So, I'm one of those guys. No, I use a PC at work. So LogRocket, almost done. LogRocket is new to me. I've heard good things about it. It supposedly grabs network activity, all the errors, and will actually do a visual replay of the user's activities.
Heat map.
No, real like.
this is
No,
you click-
so you can
You've
also
used
get
it?
tools that
do an actual
Oh.
heat map that marketing people can use of where the people actually leave their cursor on the screen.
Right, but this is actually for this one specific user. So you'll be able to hopefully replay what they did.
Yeah.
And when I looked
Yeah,
at the
no,
pricing
brilliant.
on this, I think it was not, yeah, for developers, you get 1,000 sessions per month, which is probably more than I care about. You know, I don't want to actually spy on my customers. I only want to look at them if they tell me they've got a problem. Okay, we're coming near the bitter end here. Okay, when someone talks to you, you should freaking reply, right? This is just old school, be a good person, right? Even if it's just to say, I'll get back to you in a couple days. My users will know that they're talking to Steve, because it's a very small world, right? You may have big users where they have no idea who you are, and you're just a person making the tool. But so you can decide what your communication level is. I'd actually say, hi, I'm at an agility trial this weekend. I will help you on Monday when I get back. And my users will probably be happy with that. If you're selling something that's really mission critical, they'd be like, I hate you, I'm gonna go to your competitor. So you have to decide, but always acknowledge. But you get to decide, hey, is this thing a bug? Is it a feature? Maybe it's a pivot. I had this in my beta test, actually, where someone said, hey, I'm trying to enter all this data in your notes section, and I'm overflowing the like 200 characters you give me. And I realized what they were saving should be a whole bunch of filters. They want to filter all this data, those maps I was showing you, the cool maps, on about a dozen different parameters. I'm like, of course they do. So it became a pivot for me where I said, not only am I doing this one feature, I've got this filtering feature, which is something people actually need. So listen to your customers, old news, but what was coming across as a feature request or a bug request is like, it's a whole new feature. And then I talked to someone else and they're like, if only I could use this data on both of my devices. I'm like, I bet I can make that happen. So I have a master's feature that you can pay me for, and I'll share data for you. So sometimes a bug is actually a feature. So kind of the last piece of this is record those issues, right? So when you want to keep track of them, your tool, Freshdesk or GitHub or GitLab, you can create issues for them. I'm kind of old school. I'll pull back the curtains. I'm using Trello. I love the Kanban style. I can drag stuff around and like, nope. Eventually, I've got to release the first release. I keep pulling stuff out, saying it doesn't need to be in. It doesn't need to be in. But I love this style, and Trello's free as a tool too. Oops. You can create video. Another tool, Loom. It's free. It's you can do screen recordings with your cam, with the video cam. You can pick the window. So I've got my. Come on. It's doing something bad. So you can. Never mind. You can record stuff right off your screen, save it. And it gives a shareable URL of that video. It's all free. And then you could send, so if someone says, I can't make this work, you can go walk them through it, record it, and send it to them. And it's all free. So that's Get Loom. And I think I'm almost done. So once you've done that, you can paste that video into your knowledge base, right? Someone asked you a question, someone else is gonna have that question, right? So paste it into your knowledge base, and then you could actually send it out via your social media, right? It could be that that's a feature other people want, or a thing they didn't know you could do. And now you've just taken a bug, turned it into a tiny bit of marketing material that'll help remind people about your app. And the very last thing is for internal stuff, document it, because future you will thank you for remembering how to do that. And someday there might not just be you, there might be somebody else. And you can say, here's how you solve that problem this customer had. And lastly, you can always automate it if you get gung ho. So, thank you.